One of the simplest ways to scale any company is using a process called lateral expansion. It's not easy, but it's simple, meaning that if you follow a proven system like I'm going to show you today, you'll get results. And when we're talking about lateral expansion, those results could literally collapse timeframes and help you scale more in 1 quarter than most companies scale in several years. And what we're going to talk about today is how we've used NASCAR and several other big resources to grow companies for free. Let's start by defining lateral expansion, because if you search the term online, you're going to find a lot of different definitions. So I think the easiest way to define lateral expansion is to start by defining vertical expansion, right? They're two totally different things, lateral expansion, vertical expansion. Two different ways to grow companies. Vertical expansion is, I guess you could call it the basic entry price to building any business. It's what almost any business focuses on when they want to grow. They focus on increasing prospects, increasing sales, increasing the lifetime value of customers. Those are the 3 main ways that most companies grow. And all those things are vital pieces of scaling a company. But lateral expansion, on the other hand, is thinking outside the box. And it's using tools that most business owners either don't know about, or they don't believe are possible, or they just plain forget to use. It's kind of like, if you think of a campfire, and vertical expansion is kind of like throwing firewood onto that fire all night long to keep that fire going over and over again. Every time I want that fire to keep going, every time I want that company to keep sustaining itself, we have to throw logs on the fire. We have to throw new customers into the funnel in order to keep that going. That would be vertical expansion. Lateral expansion would be like throwing gasoline on the fire and experiencing a dramatic growth in a much shorter period of time. It'd be like scaling from $1 to $2 million, or from $2 to $10 million, and from $10 to $30 million. And if you do it right and you back that growth up with systems, then that new level of revenue is your new low. So if you went from 2 million and that was where you were for years, and then you did something like we're going to talk about today, and you scaled to 4 or 5 or $10 million, that now is your new low level of revenue, right? Because it's backed up by systems, and now it's going to be sustainable. So to scale at the rate needed in today's world and to maximize profits, we need both vertical expansion and lateral expansion tactics. And if you're not using lateral expansion, you're literally leaving money on the table. Now, there's several ways that we've used lateral expansion to scale companies over the years. The 3 most common are, number 1, acquisitions, where we go out there and we buy companies and we absorb them in to our company. And we shot a video not that long ago showing you step by step how we acquire companies and exactly how we handle the negotiations so that we could acquire those companies for far less upfront cost. Another way is building a complementary company that grows your current company. It's how we've literally segmented a department out of a company, made it its own entity, and then leveraged both companies to scale. So in the end, we have one profitable company, right? And then after 12 or to 18 months, after we've broken those 2 apart, we've taken that department out. Now we have 2 even more profitable, successful companies, because both of them support the growth of the other as we're growing. And we haven't shot a video on that one yet, but let me know in the comments below if you want that kind of information. And the 3rd most common form of lateral expansion that we use is a branding asset. It's adding a branding asset that massively increases our reach. And that's what I want to focus on today. And I think really the fastest way for you to really get how to do this in your company is if I walk through a real life example of one of the times that we've done this. So what I'm going to share with you today is how and why we used NASCAR to grow a company for free. Now, you might think you're not in a position to leverage NASCAR, but I have never, let me repeat, I have never been in an industry where there weren't gigantic, unbelievably big opportunities that people were just passing by. So keep your mind open, and my guess is that in a few minutes or so as we go through this, you're going to think of at least one way to leverage this concept to scale your company this quarter, right? So think outside the box, let your mind wander, don't think of just what I'm talking about. Try to think, how can I implement this into my own company to scale? So the case study is several years ago, I was a partner in a social community called Health Life. And one of our main products was a paid online community. And I remember sitting in a meeting with our leadership team and looking at the company targets and brainstorming on ways to hit those targets. One of those targets was having 20,000 new members in our paid community. And what made that interesting interesting is a nice way of putting it, made it frustrating also. Well, what made it interesting was that there was so little money in the budget to make that happen. So every person at that meeting knew that if we reached that target, it would mean several $100,000 in new revenue for that company every single month from that day forward. But with hardly any money in the budget for it, we had to get super duper creative, right? So we went through a whole long list of any asset that we could leverage in the company to get the company that kind of growth. And I remember asking the analytics team to send me the results of our latest survey we did with our current members, because before I throw any time or money or any marketing tactics into growing a company, I want to know as much as I can about my target audience, right? That's business 101. We need to know about our target audience before we do anything. And that survey showed me three things. Number one, 41% of our current members were engaged in some form of personal development, right? We weren't a personal development company, but the survey showed that 41% of our current members, paying members, liked personal development. 56% of them were single. And the last thing that we really learned was that 32% of them liked NASCAR, which I kind of just pushed aside because I thought it was useless for what we were brainstorming on right then and there. But after, I don't know, like hours, one of our leadership team said, hey, so a few years ago, before you became a partner in the company, we created a partnership with a NASCAR team. Do you think that we could utilize that? And I sat there just literally befuddled, like, why the hell is this the first time I'm hearing this? Why is this the first time this is coming up? Long story short, the way they described it to me was that we owned a lot of aspects surrounding this deal, including the technology for wrapping the car. So the entire car was wrapped in one big sticker that included all the sponsor logos and the car number and everything that was on that car. So we could change anything on that wrapper, literally anything we wanted to, including putting our company logo on the car during the race. Now, the good news was that NASCAR fans are historically super loyal buyers to companies that sponsor cars. But the problem with that was that our target audience was not NASCAR fans, right? So really, we had to get more creative again. Yes, some of our current members said they liked NASCAR, right? But that didn't mean that other NASCAR fans were going to buy a membership into a health community like ours. NASCAR fans buy things like beer and tires and motor oil and things related to cars. Now, there's a few outliers, right? I mean, I'm sure I have seen outliers who have been successful sponsoring cars that don't fit that model. But we didn't have the budget to run our car for a year before we gained any exposure to our brand and began to profit. So I decided I was going to use everything that I found from our customer survey to make this work out big for us. But again, it had to be unique. And that's the very first step in lateral expansion. Know your audience and find new ways of putting your message in front of a much larger number of them. So here's what I knew that I could leverage. Number one, if you remember, 41% of our current members liked personal development. And I happen to be friends with several of the largest personal development icons around. So I could leverage that. Second thing was 56% of our current members were single. And I also happen to have a friend who owned one of the largest singles websites at the time. So I could leverage that. So I put a big ass list together of brands. We actually, really put a lot of time and then narrowed it down. And I decided on 8 large brands that I had strong relationships with. Either they were super good friends of mine or they were clients inside of our consulting firm. Either way, they had a strong level of confidence in me because they had seen me grow companies over and over and over again in my past. And although I knew NASCAR fans were not my target audience, so I probably wouldn't get 20,000 new members into our community just by putting our logo onto our car during one race. What I did know was that if I could get some of these personal development friends of mine to mail their massive lists, their massive database to promote our community, that I could easily reach that goal. So I went to all 8 of them and I told them, hey, this is what I want to do. I want you to send 3 emails to your list, promoting our membership using naked links, meaning that they would not get a commission. It wasn't like an affiliate link or a joint venture link where we could give them commissions on it. I didn't want any of that. They were just going to promote our community as a favor to me. And they all kind of looked at me super weird, like I was crazy, because that's a huge ask, right? But I told them, hey, I could get your photo and your name or your company logo onto our NASCAR during the Daytona 500 qualification race. And if they wanted, they could even come to the race and have their picture taken next to the car with their photo on it, right? So if they're going to have their picture put on it, they can stand right next to it, and we could get a picture of them standing next to their car with their photo on it. And I even got some of them hard passes so they could join me on the track, right on the track, which was also pretty damn cool. And from that day forward, these people would be the only people in their little networks in almost any room they went to that they could say, hey, my photo was on a NASCAR, right? That's pretty cool bragging rights, and something they could never have achieved without me. 7 of those 8 people said yes. Now, the Daytona track can handle, I believe, I'm sorry, I know this is sacrilegious to some of you to say, I'm not a NASCAR fan. I spent a lot of time there, but I'm not a NASCAR fan. So if I get any of these numbers slightly off, I apologize. To my knowledge, Daytona track can hold almost 170,000 people. Plus, that year that we ran the car, about 17 million people watched the race. And out of all of those, I doubt we sold more than a dozen memberships to our community, because NASCAR fans were not our target audience. But with 7 large databases mailing for us and millions of emails combined from them going out promoting us, what do you think? Do you think we hit our target? And by the way, we also built a large database from that promotion, a database that we were able to advertise all of our other products to, and also products that we didn't own, but that we received a commission for referring a sale to. So we used an asset that we already had access to, and we created a win-win for some key relationships in my life with no money out of pocket, and we exceeded our expectations by adding a branding asset, the NASCAR, that massively increased our reach and put our message in front of a far larger audience that didn't know us before. Not NASCAR fans. Remember, this is not the NASCAR thing. That was just a tool. But rather, all the loyal followers of our personal development friends who promoted us. So like I mentioned earlier, I have never been in an industry where there weren't gigantic, unbelievably big opportunities that people were just passing by. Lateral expansion begins with thinking outside the box and opening up your mind to some of the things that might be around you. There's a lot of possibilities just inside of your business, inside of your employees' lives, inside of your lives, inside of your partners' lives. Remember, I had no clue we had access to a NASCAR until I dug deep during a team meeting, right? So we leveraged our team and the knowledge there and the resources there and partnership relationships. We leveraged everything. And we've done this kind of out-of-the-box marketing, this lateral expansion, many times in every single industry that I've been in. And done right, it's always like throwing gas on a fire and accelerating our growth. So think about your business for a minute. What's one big opportunity or asset or relationship that you could leverage to put your message in front of a massive audience? Get creative, and then share your ideas with me below. Also, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, do it now, because we're going to be giving away a $5,000 business strategy meeting with me. But you have to be subscribed to be in the drawing. So subscribe now, and then share your insight on how you too could leverage lateral expansion to grow your company. No matter what stage of growth you're at, we all need an unbiased review of what's working and also what might not be working anymore in our business. Because the greatest cause of stagnation in any company, the reason most companies hit plateaus in their growth, is because they fail to see the roadblocks that stop momentum in its tracks.